Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and much appreciated you guys taking a little time to check the video out. Today I'm going to give you guys a good little tip for March fish, and I'm going to sort of clue you in on to what is the number one area, the number one type of structure that you can catch your biggest bass on during the month of March. So I think you guys will find it pretty interesting here. So I love fishing in March, guys. I think that March is the best time of year to catch big fish. There's actually more big fish up in March. In most lakes across the country, March is when the largest percentage of bass over 4 pounds sort of get into that really that 3 to 6 foot zone close to the bank. That's when they're catchable, and that's why a lot of the really big bass that are caught throughout the year are caught in March. Most people, their personal best bass a lot of times come in March. It's just a really good time of year. So I want to share with you guys a really good tip here as far as the sort of like the number one area that you need to look for to catch your biggest bass in March. Now, a lot of this again depends on the sort of like the makeup of your lake, because not all lakes are going to be similar. So what I want to do today is I want to sort of concentrate on a typical man-made impoundment. It doesn't matter if you're fishing a lake like, you know, like Oroville in California, if you're fishing Ozark lakes, or if you're fishing some of the East Tennessee lakes or North Georgia, whatever. Man-made impoundments that have a mix of rock and wood in it. Now, this isn't going to be applicable to maybe some of the lowland lakes like Lake Eufaula or Lake Seminole, you know, in Georgia, or Texas lakes, you know, those flatter type lakes that have more vegetation. This is more rock and wood. So if you guys live around a lake that has, you know, those type of characteristics, which would be again, like a Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri, it could be a Lake Cumberland in Kentucky, it could be a Lake Lanier in Georgia, all this type of stuff, it's going to work for you guys. The number one area where you're going to catch your biggest bass, guys, is, I'm going to tell you how to find it and tell you how to get to it. If you look at a map and you locate 2 or 3 of the biggest creeks on the lake, and then within those creeks, go back about probably 1/2 to 2/3 of the way back into those major creek arms. Once you get back into those major creek arms, in most lakes, you're going to have the creek is going to start to narrow down to some extent. And on one side of the lake, it's going to be what I call a channel bank, where the creek channel swings tighter to the bank. And the opposite side, you're going to have the flat. These channel banks, where the creek channel comes closest to the bank and makes the steepest bank in the creek, 1/2 to 2/3 of the way back into the creek, is where the big fish set up at first. This is not, obviously not all of them, but I'm saying there's a large percentage of them. So get onto these creek channel banks and start fishing them, and start looking for rock transitions on them, start looking for irregular features, maybe little minor secondary points, that type of stuff, and parallel these things. This is a great time of year to parallel these banks with crankbaits, spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, even big swim baits, that type of stuff, and focus on that 2 to 6 foot zone. Now, the depth that those fish are going to be in is going to be relative to your water clarity. If you're fishing a lake that's got some stain in it, say you've got visibility of less than 2 foot, maybe that 1 to 3 foot or maybe 1 to 4 foot zone is going to be key. But if you're on a real clear lake, say the lower end of a Lake Cumberland or something like that, those fish could be down 6, 7, 8 feet deep. Also, it's going to depend on the day, the type of day. If you have a warm, windy day with some overcast, those fish may be shallower. But if you got a day that's got a post front and maybe a bright bluebird sky with not much wind, those fish might be a little bit deeper on there. So that's all relative. But what you're going to have is the water temperature is so critical in all this. The water temperature that you want to fish these type of structures are anytime the water's in the 50s. From the time it's 50 to 59 degrees, this is when you want to be on those channel banks. Now, what happens after the water temperature gets to 60 is a lot of those fish are going to start moving shallow to spawn in the adjacent coves, and they're going to move off those steeper channel banks. But right now, guys, we are in the middle of it right now. This is the prime time to catch those big ones. And also, one of the things I would suggest is, if you get one of those days that's nasty, like rainy and cloudy, put you on a big 1-ounce spinnerbait with a big blade on it and parallel those channel banks like that. That's a good way to catch a giant. So anyway, just a few tips. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll talk later.